Here's what you missed from Glaucoma 360. I'm Cary Powers here at the Glaucoma 360 Forum. I am joined today by Dan Ignaszewski, Executive Director of the Alliance for Vision Research. Dan and his team work tirelessly to secure federal investments in vision research and ensure that policymakers understand the transformative impact of this work. Dan, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for the invitation.
So for those of you that might not be familiar with the Alliance for Vision Research, can you explain what your organization does and how you advance vision research?
Absolutely. So the Alliance is made up of two organizations, and basically it's a 501c3 traditional nonprofit organization where we educate and raise awareness about why vision research matters. And then there's a 501c4 where we lobby Congress and we talk to Congress about why vision research funding matters, how the federal investment in vision research can really drive change and improve outcomes for patients.
Fantastic. So tell us about the current vision research funding environment. What does the landscape look like right now?
It's been a challenging one. It's been a busy year. There are a lot of policy proposals that are really impacting vision research right now. Broadly, biomedical research as a whole, but vision research specifically, there's been a consolidation in the last 2 years that's been proposed that would consolidate vision research in with neuroscience and brain research, which would just decimate vision research funding, because if you consolidate it in with neuroscience and brain, we're going to get lost. Even though there's the brain-eye connection, it's something that we believe that vision researchers just wouldn't have the adequate funding to be able to support the research that needs to happen. And that's why vision research was actually taken out of neuroscience and brain research back in the 1960s by Congress. So that proposal has been around now for a couple of years, and we are fighting back against that proposal to maintain NEI as an independent institute. There have been substantial proposals to cut NIH funding overall, upwards of 40% or so. Thankfully, some of those have been stayed off for now, and we're maintaining level funding. Over the last several years, over the last decade or so, we were seeing increases in NIH funding overall. These last couple of years, we've kind of seen a leveling off of that. And so the environment has kind of shifted where, there's some uncertainty, there are some challenges. There are caps that have been proposed on how institutions and researchers get their funding back. And all of that makes for a very challenging environment. But thankfully, Congress is listening and trying to make sure that people understand why vision research funding matters.
That's great to hear. So, of course, one of the challenges in advocating for research funding is helping the legislators and policymakers understand why vision research matters. So how do you make the case for prioritizing eye and vision research in a competitive funding environment like that?
It's a challenging one. There's 27 institutes right now at NIH. Vision is one of them at the National Eye Institute. And, what we try to do is help people understand why vision matters to people, telling the story of and the impact of vision for people. We help explain, the different types of vision conditions, including glaucoma, through congressional briefings. We have an annual briefing every year on glaucoma where we tell policymakers, what is glaucoma? How does it impact patients? We have a patient perspective. We have a researcher and clinical perspective. And we basically use that as an opportunity to educate policymakers on what these vision conditions are, why they're important, and the role that research plays from sort of basic science, translational science, and clinical science, and how federal funding for that really improves outcomes for the researchers and ultimately for patients.
So we're here at Glaucoma 360, surrounded by the researchers, clinicians, innovators, and even patients. So what can this community do to help ensure continued federal investment in glaucoma and vision research?
Absolutely. It's one of those things that advocacy can't be done alone. It can't be done in a box. One of the old sayings in Washington, D.C. is, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And that's never more true today than it is today. And I think that what we need as a community, vision as a whole and the glaucoma community specifically, really needs to come together around singular sort of consistent messaging about why vision research funding matters, why it's important. We need more than, it can't just be researchers going up saying, we need dollars for our research. We need clinicians saying that The outcomes of that research is what's improving patient care in the long run. We need patients saying, because of this advancement in research and because of these advancements in care, my vision is better than it would have been. Or I want the future of vision. I want to have cures. I want to have better treatments for these conditions. And so we really need everybody coming together, industry playing a role, talking about the pipeline development for devices and therapeutics to be able to help the policymakers understand that the vision research sort of has this long road to fruition. But if we're able to fund that research through the federal investments and through foundations like GRF, there's a great opportunity to be able to improve outcomes for patients in the long run.
So what do you think is the most compelling messaging right now in the eyes of policymakers?
I think the biggest thing right now is, it's a tough environment, challenging environment. We need to differentiate ourselves. Everybody, when you say the word cancer, people, oh my gosh, they get upset and they get concerned about it. When you say things like Alzheimer's, people get upset and they get concerned with it. And those conditions, rightfully are getting a lot of funding from our federal tax dollars. But vision has kind of had an outsized influence in research. And what we are trying to do is educate policymakers in that. Vision was the first to come up with a gene therapy. Vision was the first to come up with an AI-approved model for diagnosing diabetic retinopathy. We're leading the way in imaging. We're leading the way in big data. And we're leading in ways that are benefiting the broader research community because, frankly, the eye is a really good model for research. And so what we are trying to do is help people understand that, and then help people understand that, when you get a diagnosis of glaucoma, when you get a diagnosis of other vision conditions, and you're talking about vision loss with your physician, it can change your life. And ultimately, what we want to do is help people see the value in vision, help policymakers understand that vision matters to people. It matters to them. It matters to their family. And that when we have an opportunity to treat these through improved research, that's the big focus that we want to emphasize.
Well, thank you so much for the great work that you guys are doing over at the Alliance to advance funding for glaucoma treatments.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all that you all are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. For more information about the Glaucoma Research Foundation and their work to cure glaucoma, visit glaucoma.org.